I would like to start today's presentation by playing a brief clip. It has English subtitles, but pay attention and see if you can identify the language that is being used, and we will continue in about a minute or so.
Auf a Chassene bin ich gewesen, bei der Kalla heute hab ich da sein, Trouble. Blitz im Herd mit ner Gewalt, dem Naden schreit der Hustenball. Trouble. Die Kalle ist hasch verschreck, der Husten soll nicht weg, der Machiten beit sich unaneck. Es ist Trouble. Wart nur aus dir Husten leben, ich will mich schön von dir bestreben, noch der Chippe will ich dir geben. Trouble. In du der Trouble, wachst auf dem Matte. Trouble, wird Hecher breiter. Da lebt a Zeit, a Sochen weh, es hilft kein Weinen, kein Geschrei. Trouble hat der Größer in der Kleine. Oi, weihi Ehre, weihi Beuker, vergessen Naden, nimm dir dem Heuker. Trouble, hat jeder Reines.
That clip was from a 1937 film called I Want to Be a Boarder. And if it sounded German to you, then you would be correct, sort of. Yiddish is a Germanic language with several million Jewish speakers, today mostly in Israel and the United States. A distinct Jewish culture known as Ashkenazi appeared by the 10th century in Germany and surrounding areas.
Something very mysterious happened in that part of the world that historians have chosen to bury. Judaism. The genetic research is available on the internet. Anyone can study it. You had conferences, medical conferences, which were organized to study these people, their genetic composition. They had a genetic composition which was unique in all of mankind. No people in the world were like them. This is scientific research. And these people, the Khazar, chose to convert to Judaism, but they did so not for any religious reasons. They were not so much interested in the Kitab and to follow the law. They embraced Judaism for purposes of political expediency. They were sandwiched between Islam and Christianity, Byzantine Christianity, and they chose Judaism. These European Jews, if you look at the list of names of Nobel Prizes for science, for literature, would you name it? You will find that these are people who far exceed the rest of mankind in their intellectual brilliance, in their academic achievements, in their scientific research. They are a people different from the rest of mankind. And then you find that these Khazar, who became Jews, also chose to become Christians. So you have the Khazar infiltrating the camp of Judaism and infiltrating the camp of Christianity as well. It is these Khazar, who having become Jews, first Jews and then Christians, who built an empire that was the most powerful in Europe and Central Asia. And when the armies of Islam had simultaneously defeated the two superpowers in the world, the Persian Empire and Byzantium, and had emerged as the most powerful military force in the world, Khazar blocked our way. We could not defeat them. And so it would be quite correct to say that the Khazar demonstrated a military power without equal in the world at that time. They spread out to Eastern Europe, they spread to Russia, and eventually crossed the sea to the United States. And they are at the heart of the revolutions which transformed Europe from Christendom into modern Western civilization. They are at the heart of the Bolshevik Revolution in Russia, which overturned Christianity in Russia. They are at the heart of the French Revolution, in consequence of which the back of the Christian church is broken. And they are at the heart of the creation of the Zionist movement. It is these Khazar, Jewish and Christian, who now move to the Holy Land, assisted by a strange and mysterious Jewish Holocaust. And the history of that will one day be revealed. How much was their input into the Holocaust?
Ashkenaz was the medieval Hebrew name for Germany. Their language is mostly Middle High German, but is distinctive because it is written in Hebrew characters and has some Hebrew and Slavic words mixed in. The Russian Empire at one time hosted the largest population of Jews in the world. Within this territory, the primarily Ashkenazi Jewish communities gave rise to the Bolsheviks, who had engineered the Russian Revolution of 1917 and had managed to kill, in the process, some 66 million Russian Christians. Although anti-Semitism has a long history, arguments can be made, and are being made, that a large degree of it in relative modern times was in direct reaction to the horrors brought about by the Jewish communist philosophy.
Членами его являлись примерно на 80-85% евреи. Но они же, руководствуясь ложными идеологическими соображениями, шли тогда на аресты и репрессии и иудеев, и православных, и представителей других конфессий, мусульман. Они всех гребли под одну гребенку. И вот эти идеологические шоры и ложные идеологические установки.
When World War I erupted in 1914, President Woodrow Wilson pledged neutrality for the United States, a position that the vast majority of Americans favored. At the start of the war, Germany had 48 submarines of 13 classes in service or under construction. The U-boat was the Germans' most formidable naval weapon, a military submarine far more sophisticated than those built by other nations at the time. The typical U-boat was 214 feet long, carried 35 men and 12 torpedoes. and could travel underwater for about 2 hours at a time.
But one weapon would revolutionize the war at sea: the submarine, or U-boat, as the Germans called it. When war began, the British Navy had more submarines than Germany. The British used their submarines for patrols in support of the surface fleet. The German U-boats would have a totally different purpose. They became the lone hunters, and they gave Germany its one truly effective naval weapon of the war. Much of a U-boat's lonely time in the ocean was still spent on the surface, allowing moments of peace and calm.
After an excellent supper on the fresh fish given to us by our fishermen friends, we were glad to clamber up on the conning tower to enjoy the northern evening air and a cigar. Grey and violet hues replaced the shining glow of sunset.
Underneath the water, as the U-boat went in search of its prey, life became very different.
The atmosphere below was really beyond description. An appalling burst of heat flung me backwards. The thermometer stood at nearly 45 degrees Celsius. The men were standing over their engines in the bare minimum of clothing.
In September 1914, this new underwater threat showed its murderous potential. 3 aging British battleships, the Aboukir, Hogue and Cressy, were sunk in a single day by one German U-boat. 1,400 other sailors lost their lives. The U-boat was able to sneak up on its target without being seen.
It was a sneaky weapon, a damned un-English weapon, it had been called by one British commentator.
Germany could easily hold its own, but something caused America to join the war, something most Americans were never told about.
With British Prime Minister Lloyd George up against a wall, Lionel Rothschild and the Jewish Zionists offered the British a deal they couldn't refuse. "We'll bring the United States into the war as your ally and win the war for you," they said, "if you'll promise us Palestine." In April of 1917, President Wilson got the green light and declared war on Germany. In return, the British government wrote the famous Balfour Declaration and addressed it to none other than Lord Lionel Rothschild. The declaration promised Palestine and Israel to the Rothschild Zionists.
In 1817, Lord Allenby conquered the Holy Land, and the Jews were promised a national home in Palestine by the Earl of Balfour, a policy endorsed by Woodrow Wilson and by the League of Nations, which made Palestine a British mandate.
Benjamin H. Friedman was a successful Jewish businessman who was at one time the principal owner of the Woodbury Soap Company. He spent the great preponderance of his considerable fortune, at least $2.5 million, exposing the tyranny which he believed had enveloped the United States.
That is something that the people in the United States have never been told. They never knew why we went into World War I. The Balfour Declaration was merely Great Britain's promise to pay the Zionists what they had agreed upon as a consideration for getting the United States into the war. When the war was ended, and the Germans went to Paris, to the Paris Peace Conference in 1919, when they were cutting up Germany and parceling out Europe to all these nations that claimed a right to a certain part of European territory, the Jews said, "How about Palestine for us?" And they produced, for the first time, to the knowledge of Germans, this Balfour Declaration. So the Germans, for the first time, realized, oh, that was the game. That's why the United States came into the war. And the Germans, for the first time, realized that they were defeated. They suffered this terrific reparations that was slapped onto them because the Zionists wanted Palestine. And they were determined to get it at any cost. When the Germans realized this, they naturally resented it. Up to that time, the Jews had never been better off in any country in the world than they had been in Germany. The Jews were doing very well in Germany. No question about that. Now, the Germans felt, well, that was quite a sellout. We've been so nice to them, and from 1905 on, when the first communist revolution in Russia failed, and the Jews had to scramble out of Russia, they all went to Germany. And Germany gave them refuge, and they were treated very nicely. And here, they sold Germany down the river for no reason at all, other than they wanted Palestine as a so-called Jewish common.
My name is Robert Sepehr. I'm an author and anthropologist, and would like to invite you to join me in awakening from a long amnesia. Species with Amnesia, Our Forgotten History. Gods with Amnesia, Subterranean Worlds of Inner Earth. The Occult Secrets of Vril. And 1666, Redemption Through Sin. I would like to thank my subscribers who share my posts, as I rely on word of mouth, and I appreciate all of the positive feedback, reviews on my books, and I thank you very much for listening.